Imagine flying a reconnaissance plane over the battlefield. Below you, dozens of American tanks are preparing for an attack. You report it to command. Units begin to move. But those tanks aren't real. This was one of the strangest military deceptions of World War II. It was called the Ghost Army. In June 1944, Allied forces launched the invasion of Normandy in northern France. Thousands of landing craft crossed the English Channel carrying soldiers from the United States, Britain, and Canada. Within hours, the beaches were filled with troops, vehicles, artillery pieces, and supply equipment. Although the initial landings were successful, the situation remained dangerous. The German army still controlled much of France and possessed powerful armored divisions capable of counterattacking rapidly. If German commanders could determine where the next Allied offensive would occur, they could move their tanks into that sector and attempt to block the advance. The success of the Allied campaign depended not only on military strength, but also on controlling what the German command believed was happening along the front. During modern warfare, intelligence plays a crucial role in decision-making. German commanders relied on several sources of information to understand the battlefield. Reconnaissance aircraft photographed roads, fields, and villages in search of troop concentrations. Signals intelligence units monitored Allied radio communications in order to estimate where divisions were positioned. Observers along the front reported vehicle movement, artillery fire, and troop activity. From these various reports, German analysts attempted to construct a picture of the Allied order of battle. If they believed large armored formations were assembling in a particular region, they would often move their own forces there to reinforce defenses. Allied planners recognized that if this picture could be manipulated, German forces might be drawn away from the locations where real attacks were planned. To exploit this idea, the United States Army formed a special unit officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. The group was designed specifically for deception operations. Instead of engaging enemy forces directly, its mission was to create convincing illusions of large military formations in areas where only small numbers of soldiers were present. The unit consisted of roughly 1,100 men, organized into several specialized companies. Each company contributed a different element to the deception strategy. Some soldiers handled visual illusions, others worked with sound equipment, while trained radio operators transmitted false signals intended to imitate real units. Operating often near the front line, these soldiers staged elaborate scenes designed to be seen by German reconnaissance aircraft or detected by intelligence monitoring systems. Many of the men selected for this unit had unusual backgrounds for soldiers. Before the war, a number of them had worked as artists, advertising designers, architects, illustrators, and stage set builders. Their creative experience proved useful in constructing believable visual environments. Instead of focusing solely on combat training, these soldiers learned how to design scenes that could withstand inspection from the air. They studied how equipment was normally arranged within military camps, how vehicles were parked, and how supply areas were organized. Their goal was not simply to place objects in a field, but to create an environment that looked authentic to a trained military observer. One of the most distinctive tools used by the Ghost Army was the inflatable tank. These models were constructed from rubberized fabric and carefully shaped to replicate the size and silhouette of American M4 Sherman tanks. When deflated, the models could be folded into compact bundles and loaded into trucks along with portable air compressors. Once the unit reached a new location, the soldiers unrolled the fabric structures across open ground and connected the compressors. Within minutes, the flat bundles expanded into full-size tank replicas. From the ground, the models appeared lightweight and flexible, but from several thousand feet above, they cast shadows and silhouettes that resembled real armored vehicles. To make the illusion more convincing, the soldiers carefully arranged the inflatable equipment across the landscape. Tanks were positioned in formations similar to those used by real armored units. Nearby areas contained tents, supply crates, and fuel drums intended to represent support facilities. Tracks were dragged across dirt roads and fields to simulate the marks left by heavy vehicles. In some cases, the inflatable tanks were moved periodically to suggest that armored units were shifting their positions in preparation for an attack. From the perspective of aerial reconnaissance photography, these carefully constructed scenes could appear remarkably realistic. Visual deception alone was not always enough to convince observers on the ground, so the Ghost Army also employed sound as part of its strategy. Special trucks carried powerful loudspeaker systems, capable of broadcasting recorded battlefield noise. These recordings included the sounds of tank engines, armored vehicles shifting gears, truck convoys moving along roads, and various mechanical noises associated with military activity. The sounds were recorded from real American units so that they would be accurate. During nighttime operations, the trucks played these recordings at high volume, projecting the sound across the surrounding countryside. To distant listeners, the noise could suggest that large mechanized forces were moving into the area. In addition to visual and audio illusions, the Ghost Army relied heavily on radio deception. Skilled radio operators transmitted signals designed to mimic the communication patterns of actual U.S. Army divisions. Every military unit had its own distinctive radio behavior, including call signs, message timing, and communication procedures. The operators carefully reproduced these patterns so that the transmissions would appear authentic to German intelligence monitors. Because German signals intelligence units constantly listened to Allied radio traffic, these false communications could reinforce the illusion that large formations were present in specific areas. One example of these deception activities took place near the town of Bettembourg in Luxembourg during the final months of the war. In this region, the Ghost Army created the appearance that a significant American armored force was assembling in preparation for an offensive. Inflatable tanks were deployed across nearby fields, while sound trucks broadcast the rumble of armored vehicles during the night. At the same time, radio operators transmitted signals suggesting heavy troop activity. While German attention focused on this apparent buildup of forces, real Allied units maneuvered in other sectors of the front. Although their mission relied on deception rather than combat, the soldiers of the Ghost Army often worked in dangerous conditions. Many of their operations took place only a few kilometers from active fighting. If German patrols had approached close enough to inspect the equipment, the deception could have been quickly exposed. Inflatable tanks offered no protection against gunfire or artillery. For this reason, the unit frequently moved its equipment and changed locations after completing an operation, maintaining the illusion while avoiding direct confrontation. When German reconnaissance aircraft photographed these areas or intercepted radio signals indicating heavy activity, the information was forwarded through intelligence channels to higher command. Analysts compared aerial photographs, intercepted communications, and field reports in order to estimate the strength of Allied forces in each sector. In some cases, German commanders adjusted their deployments based on these reports, shifting units toward areas where they believed Allied offensives were developing. By influencing these decisions, the Ghost Army contributed to shaping how the German command interpreted the battlefield. In early 1945, Allied forces crossed the Rhine River and advanced into Germany, bringing the war in Europe closer to its conclusion. During these final months, the Ghost Army continued to conduct deception operations as Allied troops moved deeper into German territory. Over the course of the European campaign, the unit participated in more than 20 deception missions. Many of these operations remained classified for years after the war. Only later did historians reveal how this relatively small group of soldiers had used inflatable equipment, sound recordings, and radio transmissions to create the illusion of much larger forces. What German reconnaissance often interpreted as the movement of entire armored divisions was sometimes nothing more than carefully staged scenes created by the Ghost Army. Their work demonstrated that in modern warfare, the perception of strength can sometimes influence the battlefield almost as much as strength itself.